All right, let's do this. Welcome back to the post-production podcast, everyone. I'm Christy Verb, the your host, and this is the second episode. I'm so glad that you popped in for more. And if you're new here, welcome. Today, we're tackling the topic of fear, and not in the sense of phobia, but more in the sense of paralysis in the face of uncertainty. This is something that I've grappled with on and off for a long time, and I figured that I'm not alone, so I thought I'd make an episode about it to get it out there in the open, start a conversation, and hopefully this will be just as therapeutic for you as talking about it is for me. Most of my life, I've frozen up when it comes to certain things. Not everything. I generally consider myself to be a pretty adventurous person and not someone to normally seize up in the face of something uncertain. But when it comes to people's perception of me, I absolutely unequivocally seize up. Why? I really don't know. I could probably go in circles for hours over this. But suffice it to say that there's a very insecure little girl that lives inside me that worries about being the last to be picked for things or being the first to be judged. If you're nodding along and agreeing and thinking, yeah, that's me, then grab yourself a cup of coffee or your favorite cup of something and let's deconstruct this. So, fear isn't some mysterious personal failing, right? It's biology, it's psychology. It's complicated, but it's most certainly not failure, and especially not failure on your part. It's part life experiences and part how we've evolved over time. So let's just take a step back and look at the biology side for a moment. Your brain, right? It's literally wired to keep you safe. Back in primitive times, stepping outside of your comfort zone or your home often meant stepping into something that potentially had claws or fangs. So your brain has learned to sound the alarm whenever you do something unfamiliar. Fast forward to today, and guess what? That same ancient part of your brain doesn't know the difference between starting a business and staring down a saber-toothed tiger. It just sees risk and screams, run! So there's that. And there's real human experiences that go into how you process new things or going public with things. For me, it's more about being out there that I find jarring. Maybe it's just because of that little girl that lives inside me that's afraid of being judged. But for those of you who something new is what gets your palms clammy, here's a story. I want to take you back to Arctic Change 2014. I would like you to picture this. I'm about to walk on stage in front of a room full of experts, scientists, policymakers, regulators, brilliant minds who, in my head, were obviously smarter, more accomplished, and more qualified than I was. As I can see the clock run down to my turn to take the podium, my heart is pounding, my palms are sweaty, I can actually feel my molars chattering together. I didn't love the idea of public speaking. I wasn't good at it, and I wasn't a super confident person. I knew my stuff, but all those other people had gone to school far more years than I had, and well, who was I? I was just the person who ran the program that gave them funding, right? No big deal. So I had two choices. I could run out of there and join the witness protection program, or I could put one trembly foot in front of the other, open my mouth, and just see what happened. Thankfully, I chose door number 2, mostly because A, I didn't have too much time to formulate an escape plan, and B, because my boss was in the room. But yeah, I walked up there. My voice shook, my knees were weak. I actually told people that I was freaked out just to get it out of my system. And then I got through my talk. I took some questions, got a little round of applause, and I went back to my seat, super thankful that that was finally over with. when I sat back down, I thought, goodness gracious, I've survived. And then I thought, I can do this. And that was that. I'm not going to disillusion you and tell you that from then on, public speaking was a total breeze. No way. I still to this day get a bit of stage fright, especially when I don't really know the people that I'm going to be speaking to. But things definitely did change then. I had done a fairly huge thing. I'd gotten in front of about 100 people at an international conference. I'd given a talk, which, if you're in the know, only a handful of people get selected for that honor at any given conference. So if I could do that, then for sure I could probably do it again. But I could also do other things that are seemingly less intimidating, like give intramural presentations at work and stuff. So I did. I gained a little confidence and started working on small things like presentations to my section, and then I worked my way up to information sessions that spanned across our directorate and webinars, and then eventually I was doing a little bit of mentoring and training, and things kind of just gradually evolved. Like I said, the fear never completely went away. It just got way less intense over time. And so when people tell me that they're shy or afraid, my gut reaction is complete empathy, because if I close my eyes and think back, I can still feel exactly how nervous I felt back at that conference. I'm not going to stand here on my soapbox atop my high horse and tell you to dismiss your fears. No, I want you to ask yourself if there's something that your fear is trying to teach you. Fear doesn't always manifest itself as sweaty palms or panic, by the way. It's a sneaky thing. Sometimes it wears disguises like telling yourself that you'll start the thing when you're more ready, or maybe if I just take one more course on this before I start, or yeah, I've been doing this my whole career, but I really don't know that much about it. Which, by the way, is Mr. Imposter Syndrome rearing his ugly head. Or my personal favorite, because if I had a dirham for every time I thought this to myself, I'd be lying on my private island somewhere instead of recording this for you. What if my family or my former school bullies see or hear this and laugh at me or roll their eyes? Finally, the big one for a lot of people. What if no one cares? But what if they do care? What if what you have to say is the one thing that makes all of the pieces of the puzzle finally fall into place for just one person? Let me ask you this. If what you have to put out there is something that has the ability to change someone's perception for the better, or if it fills them with joy, or if it helps them spring into action, just one person, would you do it? I bet you most of you would say yes. Let me tell you something. I grappled with this for a long time, but if this podcast, or if one blog post, or if one Facebook question answer, or Instagram reel that I put out there has the power to positively impact someone, just one person, you better believe it's worth it for me. Going back to that talk I gave, the talk positively influenced quite a few people in the room. I know this because many of them were funding proponents of the program that I was working on, and I'm the person that was reading their progress reports. The talk was about reporting on progress to positively influence funding continuity. And this was at a time where we were seeing so much publicly funded research being shut down, and it was scaring people. So I like to think that if this talk gave even one person the va-va-voom that it took to take action, not despair, get up and go, then it was so very worth it. But anyway, back to what fear masquerades as. We trick ourselves into thinking that we're preparing or being strategic when really it might just be a stalling tactic. But it could also be something that your subconscious is trying to teach you. So have a think, sit with your thoughts, wonder really what truly is driving this fear. I had a brief discussion yesterday with someone. We were talking about performances at school and how we so very much wished that our children would get into the school production. And she said, "Oh, I'm a performer and I studied this in my lifetime and I love to perform. I love to get up on stage." And I was amazed by that because I don't have that kind of confidence. And she said, "Oh, no, don't get me wrong. If I have to go up as myself, you better believe I'm going to be terrified. But if I go up as a character and perform in someone else's shoes, then I have complete confidence and I don't feel afraid." And so that might just be a strategy to think about being someone else. Maybe if you're doing the thing as someone else or acting it out, maybe that's a strategy to overcome jitters. Let's talk about strategies to try and move past initial fears and try and get going. I mean, I gave you a pretty radical one earlier, which was just to run toward the thing. By the way, I never thought that talk would get accepted. I swear, I wrote the abstract and I submitted it completely confident that they'd pick someone else, another person, another more worthy discussion. So I really wasn't afraid when I submitted my thing because I was sure it wasn't going to go anywhere. When I got that email that it had been accepted, I had two thoughts. The first one was, oh my gosh, I won. And for 5 seconds, it felt like someone had picked that little girl to be first on their basketball team. And then I thought, oh no. But I digress. Strategies. I know that lots of you, including myself, would like to have a step-by-step guide on how to be fearless. And that would be wonderful. But the truth is, as I said earlier, that fear never really goes away. You just get better at acting despite it, or you just get gradually more comfortable doing the thing that freaked you out in the first place. So here's what works for me when I feel that fear is starting to creep in. Reframing is the first strategy that I can offer. And I talked about this a little bit earlier when I said, what if no one cares? Well, what if they do care? And what if it leads to just one person doing something incredible? When I think about that, I feel so pumped. And it's interesting. Have you ever noticed how sometimes excitement and fear kind of feel the same in your body? What if you tricked your mind into thinking that you were just so pumped? It doesn't work for everyone, but it could work for you. The second is to just do what I did. Put one timid foot in front of the other and go for it. The hardest part is always the beginning. But what about if you made the first step so ridiculously easy that fear didn't even have time to object? Maybe you don't go gangbusters and launch your entire business concept today. Maybe you just sign up for your business Instagram account. Maybe it's going into Canva and messing around with logo ideas and allowing yourself to get into the mindset of being a business owner. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with the idea. While you're choosing your color palette, how about you imagine yourself meeting someone who's in deep need of what you have to offer? You smile at them because maybe they look panicked and you're like, girl, I got you. This is what I do. Imagining my ideal client and how I can help them fills me with the warm and fuzzy, so it might work for you too. Imagine this. What if you're a photographer? You take lovely photos and you meet a woman. She's visibly pregnant, a bit shy, isn't feeling the most comfortable and beautiful at the moment. And she says, I'd love to have some photos taken of me at this stage, but I'm not photogenic. And I hate the way I feel, and I never know what to do with my hands, and I'm so shy. And you think, girl, I got you. Sometimes it just takes a little thing like imagining yourself serving a client. Last and really the toughest advice that I have to give is just to get comfortable with the fact that you don't always get it pristine on the first go. You might feel like a hot mess. You might feel like your logo isn't quite ready, or your website doesn't have all the bells and whistles that you imagine yourself launching with. My friend, slip into the Birkenstocks of discomfort, because in the end, messy action is still action. And with every action you take, you become better or more comfortable with something. My talk, the first 30 seconds were a total blunder. I told my esteemed colleagues that they were freaking me out. But it took that blunder to get me moving forward. The thing that I want you to take away from this episode is that if you're feeling scared about something, it's a good thing. First, it means that something matters to you. It means that you care. But it also means that you're stepping into something bigger than your comfort zone, and that itself is filled with opportunities. And I'll explain that to you. If I had let fear win, I wouldn't have done half of the things that I've accomplished in my lifetime. I wouldn't have spoken at Arctic Change. I could have given up my opportunity to give that talk because I was too nervous. I could have given it to someone else. Someone else would have given that talk, and they would have gone on to do great things, and I probably would still be living with that fear. I wouldn't have started Postscript. I wouldn't have launched something in a completely new and foreign country and culture. I wouldn't be sitting here recording this episode for you, and you wouldn't be listening to it, probably bobbing your head along in agreement, knowing deep down that it's time for you to take your own next step. So that's episode 2. And I'm hoping that my words have resonated with you, even just a little bit. Or hopefully we're finishing up together here and you have a fresh perspective and a little bit less trepidation. So what's next? Well, next episode is a guest episode. We'll be speaking with my lifelong friend, Mr. Imposter Syndrome. Just kidding, he won't actually be speaking. But we'll definitely be tackling the issue of the voices in your head that tell you that you're not good enough. And why imposter syndrome is so common, how you can recognize it, and some strategies to shut it down. I'm going to say this a lot in these episodes. You are not alone. If you've ever thought, who am I to do this? What could I possibly have to offer? I'm too afraid. I don't think that I can make it. I don't think that I can do it with what's going on in my life. You're definitely not alone. So make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss it. And if this episode spoke to you, I'd really love to hear from you. I hang out at the @postscript.ae handle on Instagram, and I'd love for you to give me a follow or send me a message. That's all for now. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Post Production Podcast. I'll see you next time, and until then, please keep moving forward, one messy step at a time.